Hi. So I'm sure you know by now that the it's all the fun and games is over in that the first part of Daniel's books, which were the books of hope, are over because clearly what we read today were the prophetic books, and these chapters, so from chapter 7 to the end, mark the beginning of the apocalyptic part prophecies, part of the book of Daniel. And then the contrast between this and the Book of Hope is quite glaring. I mean, I remember, okay, so one of the things I knew about this book was that it was kind of scary. So now I remembered why. But it didn't abate my excitement. Rather, it helped to fuel it. And I'll let you know why. So Daniel started with a flashback to a dream that he had had earlier, and it was a flashback because at this time Belshazzar was dead and Darius the Mede had taken over Babylon, and now Persia was the strongest empire. Actually, there's a theory that they said he died that same night, that was the night that Persia invaded, and that was how he was killed, that he was assassinated, and his kingdom, obviously, as it was said, was given over to another. Now the dreams were so perplexing that even Daniel, aka the dream whisperer, couldn't interpret the dream, that he had to have angelic assistance. And I thought that was really cool, and it gave him some insight into the dream. Now, regarding his first vision of the horns, so what I found out was that horns represented strength and power in scripture. So anytime you read horns, well, this I knew from Revelation, reading Revelation, but then in this instance, the horns represented the kings, and actually that was what the angel let him know. And then the beast represented empires and kingdoms. Now the worst of those horns were the one that rose up and oppressed God's people, and from my understanding, that represented the Antichrist, and we'll read more about him in the book of Revelation. Much of this part of the Bible is referenced in Revelation, and in my opinion, I believe that chapter 2 and 3 of this book were actually more more connected to the book of Revelation, speaking about the things that were to come. So some theologians believe that the four beasts that were mentioned in this vision were the same four beasts, kingdoms, in that statue. Remember the statue that we spoke about a few days ago in Nebuchadnezzar's dream? And I'm inclined to actually believe, because I know that all these things are connected. Now, regarding the vision of the ram and the goats, the angel again gave Daniel insight into the dreams, and according to theologians, the goat represented Greece, and the horn, that was the ruler of Greece, Alexander the Great, and the ruler after him, who was horrible, was Antiochus the Fourth, who was the ruler that slaughtered thousands of Jews and desecrated God's altar. I actually went back and did some research on him. He was terrible. Some people refer to him as the first Antichrist because he did everything, all the despicable things. He desecrated the temple by sacrificing a pig on the Lord's altar. And obviously, we all know pig is an unclean animal, and in the temple, he set up a statue of Zeus, one of the Greek gods, and so he definitely fit the bill of that Antichrist, and God promised to deal with him personally. And according to Jewish sources, he's said to have died from an incurable, divinely inflicted disease. Now, when God was speaking about what he would do, he said, all his bones will be broken, and apparently they said he fell from his chariot and broke his bones, and then after that he was so sick, and he's so incurably sick with all kinds of things, and he ended up dying because his flesh was rotten. Even as he was living, his flesh was rotting away as he was living until he died. He died such a gruesome death. Now, Daniel's prayer, after the dream, was a very powerful one. It was inspired by a discovery that he made while reading the book of Jeremiah. During that period of captivity, was 70 years, was almost over. So he knew the times. And that's one of the things when they say, oh, pray to understand the times. So understanding the times, Daniel decided to just pray and give himself up to fasting and prayer. And he stood in as a prophet to fast and pray on the people's behalf, asking for restoration and mercy from God. I love, and while he was praying, the angel Gabriel came. I love how the angel started out by letting Daniel know that he was loved. He was not just loved, deeply loved. And that he had received instantaneous answers to his prayers. He gave him the timeline for the end of their exile and the timeline for the restoration as well. He gave him the insights into all the things that would happen, not just not deep insight, but though there will be setbacks, he let him know that there will be setbacks, that it wasn't just going to be bam, end of exile, bam, restoration. There will be setbacks, and even hinted that Jerusalem would be destroyed again, and there will be wars, devastations, etc. But then there will be a decreed end. So I mean, it wasn't exactly great news, but I mean, I think what I took away from that was for Daniel to know just how deeply loved he was. Now, the lesson I learned about God that I put down here is that God is the God of all nations. He gives and takes dominion from the nations, gives to and takes from the nations dominion as he sees fit. He is in the rise and the fall of empires and kingdoms, and the timelines and of their reign and their rule all belong to him. He demonstrated this in these chapters, that there's an appointed time for all things, and there will be a limit on transgression, and he will restore his people in relationship to him at the right time. How amazing is that? Thank you for joining me. Tomorrow we'll continue in the apocalyptic part of the book of Daniel. Keep being excited. I know I still am. And yeah, we'll see this through together. God bless you. See you tomorrow. Bye.